Moses Itauma is a precocious talent. He is so gifted in many ways. It's incredible, really, for someone so young to be as athletic as he is, look as polished as he is. Bear in mind, I interviewed Moses Itauma before his pro debut, and one of the questions I really wanted to ask him was how many amateur fights he'd had. For someone who looked so polished and was turning pro so young, bear in mind he'd only just turned 18 at the time. Right, this is 2 years ago, nearly 3 years ago now. I really wanted to know how many amateur fights he had to look as polished as he did. And in that interview, he told me it was something like 22, 23 amateur fights, which is really, it's quite a low amount. It was a bit of a kind of land when he said it. I remember at the time thinking, huh? And then obviously you're interviewing, so you want to try and get the next question. You don't want to be just stopped in your tracks. But it genuinely nearly did stop me in my tracks, given how polished he looked and how good he looked. You know, I was thinking, yikes, that's actually a bit of a strange one for someone to look that polished in such short of a time. And he's obviously been fighting good amateurs, and obviously he's not one of these amateurs like Anthony Yarde, no offense, who had 10 amateur fight against low level, probably wasn't doing a great deal of sparring, but just had that natural ability. All right, just had it. Itauma was sparring the likes of Daniel Dubois, Lawrence Okoli, etc. So it's not your typical amateur. Everyone can see he's a precocious talent. Now, he goes in a week from Saturday with Dillian Whyte. Now, Dillian Whyte, it is fair to say, has lost a step. Me and Ade did the look back this week, which is doing very well. It's on 10k plus views. I would recommend you go and watch it. It still is a phenomenal fight now. It's aged beautifully, that fight. It really has a tremendous fight. But we watched Dillian Whyte against Eric Chisora in the first fight. And Dillian Whyte, although he never looked as talented as a young Moses Itauma does, he had something about him. He had that dog, that grit about him. He was in shape. He had a bit of movement. He had a bit of mobility about him. And you look at that and you think, I bet in all those sparring sessions, in those limited amateur fights that he's had, although at a decent enough level, he's probably never been in with someone with the tenacity and the spirit of Dillian Whyte. Even now, Dillian Whyte is a very tenacious character. He's a spiteful individual. He's a hard man. That's the best way you could say it. He is a man you don't want to mess with in and outside the ring, in particular outside of the ring, but in it as well. And I wonder, has Moses Itauma ever been in with anything like that in sparring, in the gyms, in general? And how would he take being in there with someone like that? Because I suspect the build-up to this fight is going to be very, very different, because Itauma is going to be front and centre. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I think I'm right. He's co-mained, or what is it, chief support, as Carl Frampton likes us to call it. He's chief supported many a fight, even in Saudi Arabia. I think he was chief support for Usyk Fury too. But correct me if I'm wrong, he's never fully headlined a show. Now he's headlining a pay-per-view against the name in Dillian Whyte. Against Dillian Whyte, who, he can intimidate you. And so, especially if Baby Ting is there, Baby Ting can intimidate you too. Ask Lawrence Okoli that. I was only watching that video again back yesterday. Lawrence Okoli could probably knock out the majority of guys he faces in the ring. But outside the ring, man, you don't want to mess with Baby Ting. He looks, I can't blame him. I would absolutely, don't know what I'd do. I'd be absolutely bricking it if Baby Ting, came up and said, so what are you doing? It's like, oh crap, what did I do here? Yeah, and Itauma's never faced anything like that. And I think combine that with the fact that Dillian Whyte looks really up for this fight. He looks in good shape, certainly, and lost a lot of weight in the face. You can definitely see that. It has me wondering about this, because I've said this about Itauma before, right? He is so tremendously talented. I know a lot of people hate it when, people like me, Ade, Hatman, etc. We speak about the talent of Itauma. We speak about how good he is. I'm convinced he'll be a world champion. But yes, you're absolutely right. There is questions about Moses Itauma that we frankly don't know. And I think we'll learn a lot in this fight about Itauma. People are speculating about his chin. Dillian Whyte's left hook will tell us a story if it lands. We're speculating about his heart. Does he have the heart for battle? If it goes long and Dillian Whyte is making it tough, that should tell us about that. He looks so fast and fluid early on. What happens when his arms get tired, when lactic acid builds up? Will he still be able to move like that? We will most likely know after this fight. That's why it's so interesting. That's why I'm looking forward to it, and that's why we're talking about it. When I get back to London next week, we're going to do a couple of film studies of Dillian White and Moses Itauma. In particular, going into that fight, we're going to do one over the weekend of Hrgovic Adelaide, because I think that fight's particularly interesting too. But for now, we're talking about Itauma versus White. And next week, as I said, when I get back to the studio, we're going to have a real in-depth look at this. But I think Moses Itauma is in for a rough night next week. I don't know why. I didn't think it originally. But seeing the shape Dillian White is in and seeing what he can bring out of himself, albeit a much younger Dillian White, will take that into the equation, yes. I don't know. I still have a feeling this fight is going to be particularly tough at times for Moses Itauma. We need to know these questions at the end of the day. Those who get annoyed when they say, you're making him the heir apparent when there's so many questions, I get it, right? I get it. The eye test isn't just necessarily enough, right? But how many people... See, here's the thing, right? Itauma could be asked questions in this fight, which I say he probably will, right? How many people are going to be saying, even if he answers the questions, oh, you see, he got pushed back by Dillian White, oh, he's clearly rubbish, no, he's clearly this, he's 20, and he's finally been asked the questions and he's come true. You can't win with some people, but I think he will be asked questions in this fight. Question is whether he'll answer them. I think he will. I personally think he will. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Moses Itauma, the more I think about it, I don't think this is a foregone conclusion. I'm still picking him, and I will do my keys to victory, all that stuff. I will do all those videos, but it's an interesting one. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video as always, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And until next time, peace and love.